A single mother is working in the late shift of the diner tonight. She serves you with a smile on her face, despite knowing that her 3 kids at home are waiting anxiously for their next meal. She has to go to Walmart tonight after work to pick up the little groceries she can afford to feed her kids. She comes back to the table to pick up your check after you finish eating 30 minutes after the closing time, and finds that you have left her no tip. She has gotten $12 in tips today, in addition to her $3 an hour she earned while hard at work. Buying groceries will be hard for her tonight. The average hourly wage for a waitress in many states is a whopping $2.13 before tips. You should always make sure to tip your server, and in the future, making tipping mandatory doesn't sound like a bad idea. $2 an hour is not a sustainable salary to support yourself, let alone a family. Something has to be changed here. Many of the servers bringing your food are students. Don't you remember what it was like being in college on your own? The expenses pile on once you get into college. College is expensive, and most students have to take out their own loans. Many students take waitress jobs in order to pay off some of their loans, in addition to other college-like expenses. These students live a busy life in order to support themselves. College is a busy time between classes and extracurriculars, and it can be hard to find time for a job, but most students squeeze it into the little time they have between their studies. The bottom line is that these students are working extremely hard at and outside of work. They are probably exhausted too. The least you can do is tip them for their hard work to get your refills and food while you scroll through your Instagram without giving them a simple smile or even a thank you. With that being said, tipping should not only be mandatory, but there should be at least a minimum amount you have to tip. You should be required to tip your server at least 15% of your bill. I hate to be the one to say it, but if you can't afford to tip your server 15%, maybe you should go through the drive-thru at McDonald's for your meal. While there are quite a bit of people who do tip, it is rarely the correct amount. Most restaurants recommend that you tip at least 20%, which isn't that much when you think of the fact that 75% of most servers' salaries come from tips alone. Yes, every now and then, you are likely to get a server that is a little slow at getting your drinks refilled or is serving you with a sour look on their face. But what you have to remember is that your server is a human too. They could just be having a bad day, and the 5 tables they have to serve all at once probably isn't helping them out that much. The least you can do is tip them to make sure they get paid what they need. After all, most servers are working in order to get the things that they need, just like you. Now, that brings me into my last point. At higher-end restaurants, servers are more likely to be working less tables at once while getting tipped exceptionally better than lower-end restaurants where they are working a handful of tables at once. A server working at Eddie V's must serve an average of 0.2 tables an hour in order to earn a minimum wage salary in Washington, D.C., and receiving a 15% tip on each bill. Contrastingly, a server working at Denny's must serve 2 tables an hour to reach the minimum wage with 15% tips in Washington, D.C. That is, if they do actually get tipped. That is 10 times as much work for the Denny's employee to earn a minimum wage. Servers are at higher-end restaurants where bosses bring their clients for fine dining and wine could potentially make hundreds of dollars in one night in tips alone. These jobs are limited, and most servers are working at lower-end restaurants where customers are stingier with their tipping habits. Yes, the lower-end restaurants are going to have smaller bills, but servers have to work harder in order to serve many more tables at once. Many restaurants have already started adding an automatic gratuity charge onto the bill, which sounds like an idea all restaurants can take a hold of. This eliminates confusion all around and takes out the middleman in the situation. Tips are important to servers, especially considering how hard they work. Serving can be a grueling and demanding job. You're on your feet for hours on end. You have to run around in order to get tables in a timely manner, and you have to carry heavy trays. Hours are often late, and you must accommodate to rude customers who stroll in 5 minutes before closing time while maintaining a smile on your face. Servers need tips in order to make a decent salary, since in most states, the salary before tips is well under minimum wage. So next time you're thinking about whether or not the lady with bags under her eyes who was slow to refill your coat deserves a tip, make sure to consider her circumstances and tip your server.